Hello, everyone. How are you doing? Good evening. Welcome to another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I am your host, Dr. Will, and once again, I am back with Dr. Amy Fast. How are you doing, Doc?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Quite well. Thanks for asking. So, for those who may have been stranded on Gilligan's Island and may have don't know who you are and never saw our first show, will you please introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Amy Fass, and I've been in the field of education for 15 years now. I am the assistant principal at McMinnville High School. Prior to that, I was a fifth grade teacher, an instructional coach, and it's been a crazy year, but I'm loving every minute of it. So.
Awesome, awesome. So yes, we're back, and one of the reasons I wanted to do this show, Dr. Fast was so awesome. It was such a great show, great views as well. But the topic for me is important because I'm going to be honest with you. There's a lot of educators out there I call crunchy granola edu- educators who
Mm,
they talk about it's all kumbaya and sort of stuff that for me I don't relate to because students got to go get it. That's my
yep.
belief.
Yep.
I've told students if whether you learn or not, your teacher is going to get that check at the end of the month. So, you know what I'm saying? So if I were you, I wouldn't care if Miss Johnson liked me or if I like Miss Johnson
Right.
because I have dreams and goals I need to accomplish, and so that's where my energy should be focused on is my own hustle, and so that's what brought this idea to me. So people, we're going to get right into it, and I guess I kind of like went into this whole dialogue and then talk about the topic, but we're going to be talking about self-efficacy or self-determination and why it is needed in schools and for students. So, Doc, when I ask you to describe what self efficacy looks and feels like, what comes to mind?
Sure. Let me address the fluffy kumbaya first, if you don't mind. I'm really excited to be on the show because I feel like possibly um, I've I've misrepresented myself with all the emphasis on soft skills and motivation, and I feel like a disclaimer is needed in that if those people who know me in the district I work in and who know me personally, I am probably the farthest thing from the touchy feely fluffy kind of person that you're speaking of. In fact, I'm one of the people that like it's kind of the awkward hug, the hit real hard on the back kind of thing. So I'm excited for the opportunity to kind of clarify some of the things I spoke to in my book and some of the things I spoke to last time. As far as self-efficacy, as you know, I messaged you and said, like, what do you even mean by that? Because it's one of those buzzwords in education, and everyone has a different connotation with it. And so I actually asked my colleague Veronica Chase today what her understanding was of it, and she said that self-efficacy is basically, to her, understanding your own power and your sphere of influence. And that definition resonated with me because I have a hard time separating self-efficacy from the 80s like self-esteem movement or self-efficacy from just confidence or ability. So this kind of awareness of your own power and potential and potential impact, I think it resonates with me. And sphere of influence, what you could possibly, what and who you could possibly impact um, through your work. So as far as student self-efficacy, I see it through risk-taking, student engagement, self-awareness, motivation. Students who are empowered and who understand their own power definitely have a different look to them in the classroom. In terms of what it feels like, I can speak from my own experience. When I'm in a position where I'm understanding that I have more power than I might be aware of, or that my sphere of influence is great, I feel in flow. Uh, and I know a lot of people are familiar with that term, and I feel like I am more alive with this possibility that I matter and that my work matters beyond what I would even consider. So for me, self-efficacy is this. Um, it's uh, it's empowerment, but it's also being aware of your own skill sets and and being motivated to utilize them to their potential. So I guess we should start off with that's where my definition is, and I believe you said something about self-determination. I think that fits right in with that, because students who are empowered and students who are excited to maximize their potential for a cause that matters are determined. Those are determined students. So
Awesome, awesome. So tell us about your own path to self-efficacy, and what are what were some of the lessons that you learned?
Well, first of all, I was a very crappy teacher in my first few years. I'm just going to be honest with you. And so I think that the breeding grounds for self-efficacy are a combination of hope and discomfort. And I would say my first few years, I was just extremely uncomfortable. Right? It's hard. Being a first year teacher is hard. I don't have to explain why that is. But I don't feel like I had a lot of hope. I feel like I was slapped upside the head with the reality that is public education. This is hard work, and the student teacher in me that was like, I'm gonna save every kid and I'm gonna change the world. All of a sudden, I'm like, I can't even get him to do his homework. So, you know, the hope piece of that equation was it was hard for me. So if the breeding grounds of self-efficacy are hope and discomfort combined, I would say that I gained my self-efficacy as an educator when hope was into the equation, and when I had a principal who believed in me and saw my potential and helped me to see that as well. And I continued to be uncomfortable, but at least I was hopeful that I could grow through that discomfort, and I could use that discomfort as leverage to get better at what I do. I grew up with parents who, if I brought home an A-, they were like, "What's this? Can you explain this? Why isn't this an A?" So I had extremely high expectations growing up, and I had lots of situations that were uncomfortable. Granted, I feel like I lived a somewhat privileged childhood, but I was diagnosed with a chronic illness when I was a teenager, and went through various personal struggles. And it's interesting. I feel like people that have the greatest self-efficacy have often been through struggle. So I think that's one of the reasons why I would put discomfort in that equation. But you can't have struggle alone to have self-efficacy. You can't have struggle alone to have personal power. You have to also have some kind of hope that you can persevere through that struggle, and that you can use that struggle to become wiser, better, stronger. So part of my self-efficacy is that I was bad. I was a bad teacher, and I became an instructional coach and an assistant principal of curriculum. So, it's persevering through that struggle, and um, and using that discomfort and that hope to really become better and to push myself through it. So that also speaks to your original comment about the touchy feely business. It's not all about being happy and comfortable. It's like I as an assistant principal, I get all the time, this student has anxiety with this class or this teacher or this work, and as if being uncomfortable or being unhappy is a bad thing. We have associate comfort with good and discomfort with bad, and I'm not about that at all. So that's one of the misconceptions. One of the things I want to dispel about my stance is, in no way do I believe that that growth in public education or that this path toward self-efficacy involves coddling or enabling or making students comfortable. I don't. I think you gotta push hard and you gotta love hard, and that's the combination that leads to greatness. So
Awesome, awesome. So we know the present state of public education is, it's a mess. But it's a great big push for testing, 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 and standards and the Common Core. And I don't care if your state used to be Common Core and you kind of wrapped it around something else, but there's still the same sort of standards that are just ridiculous in the amount of standards that exist.
yeah,
But in that push to cover a boatload of material in a short amount of time and meet these normative test scores that all kids are supposed to meet. In what ways, if any, can schools build self-efficacy in students?
Yeah, so last time I spoke to this idea of the triple Venn diagram of success in my mind, with academic achievement being one circle, and soft skills being another circle, and intrinsic drive being another circle. And I truly believe those are the components that lead to success. And that successful people have that drive. They have those social skills and those organizational skills, the soft skills, and they have the technical skill or the academic knowledge that they need to be successful. So one of the things that I was eager to dispel is this idea that we have to take away from the academic rigor in order to focus on those other things. That's not what I'm about. And I'm not even a opponent of standardized testing. Like, we should know how our students are doing. But the problem is the way that schools and school districts employ those tests, or design their practices around policies or standardized testing policies so that students can pass the test. So when we ignore everything else in order to meet the academics component, then we're doing our students a disservice, and ultimately we're not working at all on their self-efficacy. So not only do I think that we should hold students to high expectations of academic rigor and assess how they're doing towards that, but we should also hold students to high expectations for social skills and organizational skills, and assess that as well, and hold schools accountable for making sure students are feeling motivated and engaged, and assess that as well. So it's not going to be a popular response, but I'm for assessing multiple measures of success, and then we'll get a greater picture of whether our students are experiencing self-efficacy or they're on the path to self-efficacy. As far as schools building self-efficacy in students, the number one thing that we can do to show students that they are powerful and that they have a large sphere of influence so that they feel that way is to listen to them. And I know that sounds so simplistic, and I know I said it last time, but it's ridiculous how we as adults sit in back rooms and make decisions about students, and we never ask them. We never ask them for their input. At our building this year, there was a school shooting at a college a few hours away from my town, and every time that happens, people just they're trying to wrap their heads around it, and they're trying to figure out what to do about it. And we could invest more money in security measures, and all the crazy ideas about how to keep schools safe. But the best way to ensure that schools are safe is to ensure that our students' well-being is intact. And so we decided to roll out this student survey. So we went around to every single language arts class. So we have a large high school. We have 2,100 students, and we spoke to every single class of students and said, your voices matter, and we care about your well-being beyond just your test scores. And we asked them questions about how hopeful they are, how significant they feel, whether they have peers they're connected to, whether they have teachers they're connected to, whether they'd speak up if they knew that there was a safety concern. And then they wrote comments about each of those questions. And we went through and we read every single comment from all 2,100 students, and we codified them and came up with themes and came up with areas that we needed to work on. We held focus groups with students to figure out how we could do right by them and do a better job. And student self-efficacy increased because they realized that they mattered. I think that's where it starts, because if we want students to realize they're powerful, then we need to give them some power, right? So empowering them and bringing their voice to the surface is the first and foremost way to bring about self-efficacy in our schools. We had last month a voices panel where our students, we had gang members, we had undocumented students, we had transgender students. They all got up in front of their entire class, so the freshmen or the sophomores or seniors, or juniors, and they would tell their story. And these students broke down, they cried, they told their story, they told their story, and they explained how they overcame their various struggles in life. And it was insane how unifying it was for our school, and it was insane how empowered our students felt just by hearing and sharing and knowing each other's stories. So, I'd say the first thing that we need to do as a public education system is to listen to our students if we want them to have self-efficacy. And I would say the second thing that we need to do is to promote purpose and relevance, because we could have all the personal power and belief in ourselves and confidence in the world, but if we don't have something important to apply that to, then so what? So I feel like our students, they need to realize and understand how what they are doing in schools is important and is going to affect change and is going to affect their lives, because without that purpose element, which is my platform, is what I wrote a book about, but that's crucial for students to have a sense of self-efficacy. Because listen, I'm a confident woman. I believe in myself, but there are a lot of things that are part of my job that I'm like, because I don't feel emotionally connected to them or drawn to them. So without that sense of purpose, what good is confidence going to do? So I try to harness my confidence and my skill set for the things that, and of course I'm going to do my best in every situation, but the things that really will give us the biggest bang for their buck, I'm going to tap into that efficacy and that potential and that skill set to give my all. So I feel like we need to do the same for students and ensure that what we're asking them to do is relevant and purposeful, because confidence without a means in which to use that confidence is only part of the picture. We're not all the way there.
Mm-hmm. So earlier you mentioned hope, and it's something that we don't talk a lot about in education.
Right.
We talk about this other stuff, which to me it really doesn't get to the crux of what's going on, because if no one in my family graduated from high school or went to college, no one in my neighborhood has done it. Uh, People from my high school, if anyone has done it, I don't really know who. That person may be over there. I may go, oh well, that person is smart. That's not me. You don't see the world, and you don't see the opportunities for yourself to be right at your fingertips,
Mm-hmm.
because that's not part of your understanding.
Right.
Uh, and again, that's something that in schools, we don't necessarily address that either in the curriculum or mentoring program or whatever. I mean, I understand there are schools who are doing that, but I'm just saying overall, when the state gets together and says, I
Right.
now hand you thee,
Yes.
those
Right.
things are not a part of what the state hands out.
Right.
Uh, will you speak to that and its importance in developing the whole child?
Um, yes, I will. Self-efficacy's role. Well, it's tricky because self-efficacy is both the means and the end, right? So without understanding your own capacity for excellence, and if you doubt your ability or your or importance, then why even try for greatness, right? So it's kind of foundational to developing the whole student as well. So you're kind of having to work on that that piece of it in order to get to the whole student that you're trying to develop. And also at the same uh, token, ultimately we want our students or citizens who are self-aware and understand their impact, and that's kind of the end goal too. So we need to, in order to get students who are self-aware and understand their impact, we need to develop them as whole people. So it's certainly a part of it's all a process that's never ending and is part of your entire life, and definitely K-12 K-12 education. A big thing for me is there's a difference between being touchy-feely and being and pushing for the intangibles to be brought to the surface of education. And so even though I consider myself less touchy-feely, I am all about pushing to bring the intangibles to the surface and to measure things that people think that can't be measured. And so for me, more important than skill set with teachers and students is mindset. So I always put mindset over skill set, and self-efficacy is a mindset issue. We assume that we can't. When you speak of hope, we assume that we can't attack that in public schools, and why wouldn't we be able to attack that? Because students know how hopeful they are, and in fact they usually know why they're not hopeful, or what could be done so that they are hopeful. So again, that comes back to the listening to our students. When I was a 5th grade teacher, I used to give my students a motivation survey. So there are various constructs of motivation. One, like I've talked about many times, is purpose. Another one is rigor or challenge. Challenging content, challenging curriculum is engaging to students. So that is something that fuels motivation. Another thing is affirmation, whether students feel like you notice them and their unique skill sets and what they bring to the table. Contribution is another one. Do they have something to offer their classmates? Do they have something to offer you? Do they have something to offer the school or the world? And power is another motivator. Do they have the autonomy or the power to make decisions for the class or make decisions for their own lives? And so I feel like step one, if we're trying to infuse hope into our students or develop the whole child, is to really get a feel for how they're doing. And so I think that in addition to measuring their academic proficiency, we need to measure how they're doing as students, how they're feeling, how hopeful they are, which is what we try to do with our student survey. But we can do it at the individual class level too, by just creating statements that students can agree or disagree with in terms of how powerful they feel, how affirmed they feel, how much they feel like they're contributing, how much purpose is within the curriculum, what do they even know why they're learning what they're learning, is it feeling relevant to them? So by tapping into students' perceptions of hope, or students' perceptions of how important their schooling is, or how important their future is step number one. And then you go through the same process that you go to with analyzing their academics. You look at, where are they here? Why might that be? What can I do to tackle this? And it's a continuous formative process of their motivation or their soft skills. So in developing the whole child, I say that the step number one, again, goes back to asking them and making them a real integral part of their own education. Instead of making these backroom decisions about what we need to do to make them hopeful, we should say, what should we do to make you hopeful? Again, I know it's not really complex, but it's pretty profound, because we don't do that in public education very often. And I'm telling you, when I had elementary school kids, I could spend months trying to figure out what they needed, or they could tell me, and usually they knew, even if they couldn't articulate it in a way that really got to the bottom of things. It became a lot more evident where they're coming from and what they needed when we gave voice to them. So
Okay. So now, before we go, I want to talk about relationships, because again, this is a pet peeve of mine. Whenever I see this come through my timeline on Twitter, I'm this close to an unfollow.
Okay, I'll be careful.
All right, I'm this close to an unfollow when that happens. Yes, you want teachers to be awesome folks, to build relationships with their students. And we know that kids also, when they have relationships with their teachers and they're like their teachers, they tend to sort of give greater effort.
Right.
But are we doing a disservice to our students when we allow that to be the case? Meaning, instead of saying, this is our standard,
Mm-hmm.
you will rise to that standard. Whether you like me or not, I expect greatness, your best effort from you. I'm just, because I tell kids all the time, go get it, put in the
Yep.
work. You know what I'm saying? It's time to hustle.
Yep.
Uh, so I'm just trying to figure out, in this whole relationship thing, and I know it's. I mean, come on now. I mean, let's be real as adults. I mean, when you're working with someone that you truly like at work, that day can go by a little faster.
Right.
But you still have to put in your best effort, even if you are partnered with someone that you just like. Man, I do not like Cindy, but I got to get this project done. But you still have to again do your best work.
I,
Um, so what I don't even know how to ask the question now. But I mean, like, yeah, are we doing a disservice to our kids when we talk about relationships so much, as opposed to saying, I expect your greatness, I
mhm.
expect your best effort, give it to me, let's make it happen.
I mean, listen, you're preaching to the choir here. I just had two students in my office yesterday. I'm just saying the same thing. Like, I get you don't like this teacher, but as you know, there's always people that we don't like that we have to work with, and we got to do our best. So I totally hear what you're saying. Um, and I really struggle with this notion that solid relationships and high expectations somehow have to be in contrast. And I know that's not what you're saying, but that's what a lot of people assume, is that it's a one or the other kind of thing. And I'll tell you what, I have never been in a healthy relationship that thrives on low expectations. So to me, you don't have a good relationship with your students, and your students don't have a good relationship with you if you don't expect a lot of them. Because if someone is not believing in their students, or someone's not believing in me, what they're communicating is, or if someone's not pushing me hard, or if someone doesn't have high expectations, that what they're communicating is, I don't believe in you, right? So to me, good relationships hinge on high expectations, and respect, and that's the whole point. So uh, to me, students should work hard no matter what. If they have a teacher that they don't like, they should work hard. I get that. And at the same time, as adults, it is our responsibility to do all that we can to make sure that we are um, doing uh, right by our students, in terms of that they're learning uh, they're learning at the rate they should, and with the motivation they should. So we know that learning is an emotional endeavor. We know brain research, and we know the science behind, the centers that are in charge of emotion are the same centers that work with long-term memory, and all sorts of things. So scientifically speaking, relationships help us learn. Um, but should students have an excuse to stop working hard if they don't like a teacher? Absolutely, absolutely not. And I would also say that I work hard no matter what, no matter who I'm working with. I work hard, but there's a difference between working hard and working inspired. And there are certain leaders that I've worked with, and certain colleagues that I've worked with, that when I work, I'm not only working hard, but I'm working inspired. And I can't even tell you the things that we accomplish when we're working inspired. And so I would say, yeah, I push students to work hard no matter what. But if you want them to work inspired, then you better invest in that relationship, because it's not going to happen without it. And uh, the only thing that can make a student work inspired without that relationship intact is purpose. If they know that there's a meaningful reason behind the learning, and then they have that intrinsic drive to learn it regardless, in spite of whoever's delivering the instruction, then that's another way they can work inspired. But uh, you know, we can say to teachers, you have to invest in this relationship. Um, and we can say to students, regardless, you have to work hard. So I don't think that it's an excuse. Explaining why students are maybe struggling to learn is not excusing them from the learning. So I think that we should continue to foster relationships, but not blame teachers when students aren't putting in the effort, because that's a soft skill. That's something that we need to work on with students too. Working hard, persevering in spite of, or whoever they are dealt with, or whoever they have to work with. And not every teacher is going to connect with every student, but uh, relationships, emotions are integral to learning. So we would be stupid not to focus on that aspect of teaching and learning, because it's huge. I mean, if we're going to invest in anything that's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck, it's going to be that connection, that motivation. Because like I said before, we've all worked for leaders who, we're working hard in spite of their leadership. But when we're working hard because of their leadership, that's a whole different ballgame. So I think we need to put ourselves in student shoes and remember how emotionally exhausting it is to give your all when no one's, acknowledging you for what you give or respecting you, or you're doing it alone. So I think that high expectations and relationships are interdependent. I don't think you can have one without the other very successfully.
Okay. Well, folks. All right.
You sound like you don't know what to say now. I don't know if I even said any of that and made sense, but
no. It's all good. It's all no.
You want to unfriend me now, Dr. Will?
I don't. No. It's all good. It's all good. No, I'm just one of those. For me, part of this stems from my personal drive to always want to win, multiple championships. Like I have this. Like I'm not a professional athlete, of course, but in my mind, it's always I'm on this court. It's time to win multiple championships. I'm not even thinking about playoffs. I'm not even thinking about, we won a game, let's celebrate. Right. It's all about I'm trying to be a champion. So that's my mentality when I go to work every day or whatever I do. It's all about I'll be the champion. So it's not my internal drive is not dependent on whether I like someone,
right,
or my circumstances. It's always about, sure, okay, let me make this next level. I also understand that, oh my gosh, also understand as a black man in this country, I do not have the option to be forgiven or given certain second chance opportunities that if I come with, I got to bring it. Mm-hmm. And so part of what I want for students is to understand that you're not going to be given, you may not be given that helping hand, you know what I'm saying? So you have to go take it.
Hey, I hear you. I always say that I'm successful because I'm addicted to being uncomfortable. And I think that, like I said before, the goal should not be to make students feel comfortable or feel content or rid them of anxiety or make them less angry. The goal should be like, how do you lean into that? How do you lean into that feeling and push yourself so that when you have that feeling in the future, you use it to leverage your success? So I couldn't be in more agreement with you on that. Holding teachers accountable for building relationships with students doesn't mean that we're excusing students from their responsibility to own their education. They're both necessary, and if we can have both happening simultaneously, then we can achieve beyond what we thought possible.
Awesome. And people, I have learned, work hard or work inspired. I've never heard work inspired, so I like that. I may have to steal it from you.
Go for it.
To work inspired, because I happen to have one of those bosses that he is so awesome that if he leaves, he got to take me with him. So that's wherever school he goes to, I'm like, we're rolling together. So it's really awesome. So again, people, thank you for watching another episode of the Dr. Will Show. I'm here again with Dr. Amy Fast. Go pick up her book. It is going to, a link to buy it. It's going to be on the blog post. I'm going to tweet this out. It's going to be on my blog. And always you can go to SoundCloud and check out episodes there as well. As always, people, be you, EDU, peace.